The house felt too quiet the day she got married, like the air itself knew something wasn't right, and as the last flower petals were swept off the porch and the music faded into memory, I stood at the window with a secret burning in my chest, a secret worth $7 million, hidden in a sealed envelope from the only man I ever truly loved, my late husband Richard. He had died one winter night, quiet and dignified, leaving behind not just memories but instructions, handwritten in blue ink, telling me to stay strong, to protect our daughter, and to never speak a word about the inheritance unless I was absolutely certain her future husband was worthy of it. And as I watched Charlotte smile in her white dress that day, clinging to a man I barely knew, my heart trembled, not out of joy, but out of a mother's warning instinct. You see, Richard and I built our life from scratch. We started with pennies and sacrifice, with nights eating canned soup and winters without heating, and somehow we turned that struggle into something rare, into trust, into a bond, and eventually into wealth. He was a man who believed in legacy, not just fortune, and he wanted to leave behind more than money. He wanted to leave behind wisdom, responsibility, and protection for our daughter, who had no idea the storm she was about to walk into. I kept my silence on the day of the wedding. I smiled for the photos, hugged guests, and held back tears that had nothing to do with letting go, but everything to do with holding on to something too dangerous to release. From the beginning, there was something about Andrew, Charlotte's new husband, that didn't sit right with me. He was polite, well-dressed, a man who said all the right things, but none of it ever sounded like truth. He had eyes that watched too closely when money was mentioned, and a laugh that was just a little too loud when people praised his charm, and when he shook my hand for the first time, it was the coldest grip I've ever felt. Still, Charlotte was happy, or at least she thought she was, and I wasn't about to rain on her moment, but deep inside I just knew, that if I told them about the inheritance, everything would change. And I was right. Because just 3 days after they came back from their honeymoon, he showed up at my door alone. He had a folder in his hand, and I can still hear the exact rhythm of his knock, sharp, rehearsed, like a salesman who knew exactly what he came for. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said with a smile that didn't touch his eyes, "I just wanted to stop by and drop off something for you, just a small agreement regarding any potential future financial gifts you might consider for Charlotte." He said it casually, as if we were discussing weather. I invited him in, made tea out of habit, but inside I was shaking. I opened the folder and found a printed contract, a legal document stating that any inheritance I left for Charlotte would become joint marital property, immediately. I stared at the words for a long time, reading them over and over, the letters swimming in front of my eyes. That's when it hit me. He didn't just suspect there was money. He knew. And worse, he was preparing to take it. Calmly, I looked up and asked him, "Does Charlotte know you came here?" And after a moment of hesitation, he replied, "She trusts me to handle the practical things." Practical things. That's what he called it. In that moment, I saw through everything. The charm, the smiles, the gentle voice, and I saw what Richard must have feared. A man more interested in power than partnership, in gain than in love. I tore the contract in half right in front of him, the paper splitting like the illusion he'd tried to sell me, and I told him to leave my house and never come back without my daughter. His face twitched, not with anger, but with calculation. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He just left. And that was even more terrifying, because I knew this wasn't over. That night, I sat in my husband's old chair, the one he used to read in every evening, and cried like I hadn't cried since the day he died. I wanted to call Charlotte, to scream the truth, to protect her the way any mother would, but I couldn't, not yet. I needed her to see it for herself. Over the next few weeks, I noticed things. Bruises on Charlotte's wrist she covered with long sleeves, a quietness in her voice when she called, the way she stopped coming over, stopped laughing, stopped being her. And then one night, she showed up at my door, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. "Mom," she whispered, "I think I made a mistake." She told me everything about how Andrew pressured her to ask me about money, how he'd been logging into her emails, watching her bank accounts, even controlling her calls. He told me, she sobbed, that if I really loved him, I'd make sure we got a share of whatever you had. That's when I broke. I took her hands, looked into her eyes, and told her everything. About Richard. About the letter. About the $7 million inheritance I had been hiding for her protection. She collapsed into my arms, not because of the money, but because she finally understood that I had been fighting for her all along. That night changed everything. Charlotte filed for annulment. We hired a private investigator. What we found was worse than I ever imagined. Andrew had been engaged 3 times before, in different states, and each time there had been financial manipulation, lawsuits, even restraining orders. He was a professional, a predator who targeted women with inheritance or trust funds, seduced them, and drained them dry. We were lucky. Charlotte escaped before the damage became permanent, but not every woman did. We decided to go public, to help others. Charlotte started volunteering at a women's shelter. I started writing letters to victims' advocacy groups. And as for the money, the $7 million, it's still there, still untouched. Because the greatest wealth I ever gave my daughter wasn't in numbers. It was in wisdom, in protection, in the courage to walk away from something that looked like love but smelled like poison. And now, every time I walk past that envelope in the safe, I don't feel guilt. I feel pride. Because silence, when used with love, can be louder than any scream. If you're listening to this and something in your gut feels familiar, trust it. If you've ever doubted someone standing too close to your child, your mother's instinct is not paranoia. It's prophecy. Don't ignore it. Speak up. Hold your ground. Sometimes the best thing you can give your child isn't wealth or comfort. It's protection they never even realized they needed. And if this story touched you, even just a little, please don't scroll away in silence. Leave a comment. Legacy is love in disguise. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, real love never comes with contracts. Just trust.